which is called glorious by the king of the Chaldeans, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall any enter it for many generations, neither shall the Arabians pass through it, nor shall shepherds at all rest in it. But wild beasts shall rest there, and the houses shall be filled with howling, and monsters shall rest there, and devils shall dance there, and satyrs shall dwell there, and hedgehogs shall make their nests in their houses. It will come soon and will not tarry. Remember what I just read about Babylon, and we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Yep, the satyrs.
Satyrs, yeah.
So real quickly, because this is going to come out later with when we go into Aleister Crowley, which was the origin of the new one of the things. First thing you notice is he's a hybrid, right? He's an animal and a human.
Yes.
Second thing you notice, he's got angelic wings. He's bringing the angel thing into it, right? It's an animal, human, angel, and it's a goat, right? And you'll notice it's also a transvestite. It's an anthropomorphism. It's male and female. It's a male goat with female breasts.
Yeah.
So you're seeing all these things sort of merge. Symbolism is really powerful. It's got the two snakes around the thing, which represent DNA, by the way, genetic manipulation. That's what a double alpha helix strand looks like. And then it's pointing up to the light moon and down to the dark moon, which means as above, so below, which is this. What happens in the spirit manifests in the physical. Now that's true on both sides. What happens in the spirit for us manifests in the physical.
That's right.
And there's an unholy spirit that what happens in the spirit manifests in the physical. They're using that rule, that law, to win their wars. And we have to use the same law to defeat them, or we'll get creamed. And we're going to talk about that a lot later on.
Yes, Lord.
So real quickly, the book of Jasher is another confirmation. It adds a little bit more detail that I think is valuable. And the rulers went to the daughters of men and took their wives by force. Another book that calls them wives, okay? It makes it sound like there was a wedding and they got together and they passed off rings. This is a different kind of wife, right?
Think more ISIS
Yeah.
and taking the whole tribe and capturing the women and forcing them
Exactly.
as slaves. That's what they were doing.
So they took their wives by force and from their husbands according to their choice, and the sons of men in those days took from the cattle of the earth, the beasts of the fields, and the fowl of the air. And here's the hook, everybody. And taught the mixture of animals with one species with the other in order to provoke the Lord.
Oh.
These are called chimeras. You're taking the genetics of multiple animals and you're making hybrid animals.
Oh, that would never happen again.
We're going there tonight. I've got a whole bunch of.
Oh my gosh.
So for the folks, the book of Jasher is referenced twice in the King James, right? 2 Samuel and Joshua 10. Last one, book of Jubilee. And it came to pass when the children of men began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters were born to them. They saw in a certain year, and it adds another detail, that it was on a Jubilee year that this all happened, that they were beautiful to look upon. They took themselves wives of all they chose and bare son of the giants, and the lawlessness increased on the earth, and all flesh crept its way, alike men, cattle, beasts, and birds, and everything that walked on their earth corrupted their ways and their orders. Men and beasts corrupted their ways and their orders. That means that the DNA of man's being mixed with the DNA of animal, the DNA of one species of animals being mixed with the DNA of another animal. All DNA is being mixed, and we're getting all these weird hybrids. This is going to explain all the Egyptology, the Sphinx, Greek mythology, Roman mythology. We got to run through all that, and we got to move. So you go back to the oldest civilization really that we know of.
The screen?
Yeah.
And they began to devour each other.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Cannibalism.
Yeah. So this is another witness. You know, this book of Jubilee was also, the paleographers in the Dead Sea Scrolls called it -1 to -200 BC. It's another one that stands up there with Enoch that's pretty verifiable. So we've got about, and then the Book of the Giants, I didn't do it because we've done enough, but you got 4 or 5 texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls that only confirm what all the first early century church fathers before the Council of Nicaea wrote in their writings. And then to see how Azazel was being reenacted by the Old Testament all the way up to 2nd century Judaism, it's like, it's undeniable for those who have eyes to see. But all right, so now let's go to the oldest, you go to the Babylonian cuneiform tablets, which they say are the oldest written tablets on the planet, right? And this is what you see all throughout it. All these hybrids. You've got the Nimrod, who's the bull god with wings, which represents the evil, and the body of the bull. Then you go to Egypt, and all you have is chimeras everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You've got Anubis, who is the dog head on a human body. Why do we have pictures of Pharaoh, like in the bottom left? Why do we have pictures of Pharaoh with a lion's body and a human head, a reptilian head on a human body, the riddle of the Sphinx,
Yes.
a human head on a lion's body?
Yeah.
What are they trying to tell us here? They're hybrids, right? They're just painting a picture. This is just
Kodak's magic pen.
that's exactly right. How about Greek mythology? The Minotaur, right? Pegasus, Cyclops. You go, well, okay, this is getting a little fanciful. Again, they're mixing humans and animals and DNA. So, and then even in our own scripture, in 1 Samuel 5, when the Philistines took the Ark of God, they brought it to the house of Dagon. Who's Dagon? Look it up in Strong's. He's the fish god. And it says that he's a Philistine deity of fertility represented with the face and hands of a man and the tail of a fish. And it calls, in the Hebrew, he's a merman. This is where mermaid lore come from, mixing fish and humans.
Yeah.
Okay, if you do a search on Dagon and the Pope's hat,
Yeah.
it's the same.
That's exactly right. The mitre hat is
The mitre,
hat.
it's the same
I
thing.
think I may have that actually
Yep.
coming in here. So here's my question. Why does every ancient culture in human history display all types of weird genetic hybrids and mythological creatures? Are we really to believe that all of this was the product of an overactive imagination, or could it all be rooted in some factual account?
Genesis.
Yes.
I think that's a reasonable
Yeah.
question, right? So we're going to quickly get into the etymology. The word etymology means the origin, right? Where did this come from? The etymology of myth is a Greek word. It's stories about divine beings, generally revered as true and sacred, that's endorsed by rulers, priests, and closely linked to religion, usually pertains to gods, heroes, giants, and fairies. So this word myth that we think of today, like make-believe, at one point the origin of that word was based in reality, and it's where all these other words come from. Legends, tales, folklores, lores, fables, sagas, all the things that we've heard, they're all based in some fact. So let's go to Greek mythology quickly. Greek mythology tells us the story of two groups of gods, right? The Olympians, like Zeus and all of them, who are going to fight with the Titans, the bad angels. And in Greek mythology, these gods came to earth and they slept with women and they created half human, half gods. They didn't call them angels, right? They're called demigods. They're all giants, like Hercules and Achilles. Big guys with superhuman strength and power. Guess what? They didn't come from Mount Hermon, but where do they come from? Mount Olympus. You see the parallels there?
Oh, yep.
So I believe that the Olympians, the good gods, Zeus and them, when you have the clash of the Titans, where the good gods capture the bad gods and throw them down into Tartarus, I think that would be a rendition of Michael and the good angels coming down and taking Azazel and all them and putting them into the pit. So, so real quickly, we gotta run through this. The etymology of the word hero. So the first time this word, it's a Greek word, the first time it appears is in the book in Hesiod and in Homer's Iliad, and it's used to describe demigods, a man of superhuman strength born from a god and a mortal. And the word hero is the first time it's ever used is to discuss Achilles, Hercules, Perseus, and Theseus. These are all people who have a female mortal wife from earth and a god who came from the heavens and made it. They're heroes, okay? Now we think of heroes a little bit differently today. We don't think of hybrids.
Well, our
If you
kids
ever-
are being taught that, oh,
Yes.
heroes are
Oh,
good.
all
You
the,
should
all the heroes
esteem
are
to
bad.
be-
Marvel Comics.
So here you go. So here's the Greek heroes. This is
Yeah.
Hercules on the left fighting a three-headed dog who guards the gates of hell called Cerberus, right? Could that dog really be real? Some of the pictures I'm going to show you later of the chimeras today are multi-limbed, multi-headed animals. This is what happens when you distort DNA. And you've got Achilles on the right, who's
Then look at the beheading.
yeah. What about Medusa, right? She's a female with a serpent body. I mean, it's pretty fanciful. But so here's I said this is a smoking gun. The Battle of the Titans. The Olympians were able to banish the Titans in Greek mythology and throw them in a place called Tartarus. The only time you see Tartaru, that's exactly right, the double O. The only time you see the word Tartarus appear in human history is in two places. One is in the Bible, in 2 Peter 2, when Peter himself said, if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to Tartarus, he's telling us right there, the angels were put in Tartarus, right? It only appears in one other time in human literature, and it's in the Greeks. The Greeks, in the story of the Titans, they're captured and thrown into a place called Tartarus, which is the lowest place of hell. So to me, that confirms that we're talking about the same entities, right? The Greeks have taken Genesis 6, repackaged it. They're not Nephilim, they're now called demigods. They're not angel-human hybrids, they're called gods and humans. Same deal. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
So basically a hero, a demigod, and a Nephilim are all the same thing if we're using ancient language. And so the Epic of Gilgamesh is supposed to be one of the oldest living documents on the planet. It's a Babylonian cuneiform tablet. Gilgamesh is half human, half god. He's a Nephilim, right? It describes a worldwide story, a flood story. And they found the Book of the Giants, 200 BC in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which talks about Gilgamesh being one of the pre-flood giants. So it just all lines up. This story, the Babylonians telling this story about Gilgamesh, it's just the Genesis 6 story in their own little vernacular. And then there's a picture of him. He's holding a lion. He's a giant, right? He's holding a lion. So every one of these cultures have examples of demigods within their history. If any of you do a literature search right now, you're going to find that demigods are in Greeks, Roman, Chinese, Hindu, Norse, and Celtic mythology. So here's the question. Where did all these cultures get these ideas of gods and women sleeping together to make demigods? Why is it pervasive in every culture on the planet? Obviously because it all came from a common source. So let's review. Satan's plan. To mate angels with a human to create hybrid giants to corrupt the human genome. These angels possess secret knowledge. They hybridize the animal and plant kingdom and taught mankind abominations. These Nephilim offspring were horrible abominations, cannibals, blood drinkers, fornicators of every kind, bastards. God hit the reset button and destroyed all of them and had his good angels cast the fallen angels into hell Tartarus. And after the flood, the whole Genesis 6 account becomes mythological and legendary. Instead of Nephilim, they take on a new persona and begin to appear as demigods and heroes within the post-flood culture. And today they're thought of as myth, fake, but there's much evidence to support that they're coming back. Does that work for everybody?
And that's the evidence there, but then there's the prophetic that will be confirming, and then read the military that says, oh yeah.
And anytime you guys want to chime in, let me know. We're getting...
Yeah, we'll wait until you get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty.
So I had to include this part, and you brought it up.
Right?
Is it possible that these Nephilim hybrids that were so famous still exist within the human psyche today? If this was really true, then there would be a shadow of it, a remnant of it into today's society. If so, how? What if I told you that the word hero, which was originally used by the Greeks to describe demigods like Hercules, has now evolved over millennia to the word superhero? Dun dun dun.
Yep.
Modern day
There they are.
superheroes are not fully human, are they?
No.
So Superman, get this. Clark can't become Superman, right? He's a mortal man, but he's really a god. His name is Kal-El. Anything that ends in E-L. Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, Azazel, they're all angels, right? His father's name is Jor-El. So he's a modern day Nephilim, if you will, in sort of a new packaged way, right? He's a superhuman. How about if you look at almost all superheroes? I went through to look for superheroes. I found that superheroes are not packaged like this. Gods or angels slept with women, but they are packaged like this. There's been DNA manipulation to make them something outside of what God had originally intended, right? So Incredible Hulk, David Banner becomes a superhuman through radiation exposure, mutates his DNA. Spider-Man, bit by a spider, mutates his DNA.
The enemy's only going to counterfeit what God has ordained.
Yeah.
So God can transform our DNA. I'm not saying like I wouldn't say that all of this stuff is evil and wicked. I do believe that God is raising up people with supernatural abilities.
Absolutely.
It's different.
And our DNA will be restored to what God created it to be, because it's not 100% the way that He intended for it, right, as it is. But these things are all counterfeits of what God wants to do.
Right.
Yeah. The world's
Yeah.
the God of the age just has it everywhere. My little girl watches stuff on TV, and she's gonna see. I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So
Tinkerbell, all the fairies and the Ariel, the mermaid, beautiful.
yeah,
Yuck, 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 yuck.
the point is I mean, we have this word hero, which we found that the etymology of it is in reference to demigods, half human, fallen angel hybrids. That's what the word was designed for.
Yeah.
It's today a hero is a guy who runs into a burning building and saves a dog or a baby,
Right.
right? So the word's changed, but it's really just evolved. Because we have something else now called a superhero, which is like an X-Men. He's been genetically modified, he's powerful, he's superhuman, he's famous, you know, like the men of renown, the men of myth. So it's like that, it's that personification of the Nephilim sort of existing in today's culture. That's all it is. You'll find, even Wonder Woman, I didn't realize this, but she's a demigod. Only it's the reversal, right? You never find in history a situation of the woman god comes down and sleeps with the male man until Wonder Woman. Her mom was Aphrodite, and her dad was a human, so she's a demigod. But so our culture is pervasive with it. Even if you look at vampires, you go, well, now we're getting crazy. But think about it for a second. They're partly human, but they're not. They're cannibals and blood drinkers with superhuman strength and a demonic spirit. That kind of sounds like what Enoch described, right?
Yep.
Can you go back one?
Oh, and they hate Christ, right? The vampires. So they're just a,
Yeah. When you're talking about Wonder Woman, there is the incubus and the succubus,
Oh,
which
yes.
are demonic spirits that manifest as men for women and women for men, and it's really real. And they are having, well, I'm probably going where we're going to be going.
no,
there.
I don't cover that. Although we
Okay.
do cover a lot of stuff like it.
That's where
I
Psalm
read
91
recently there was a woman that had been having relations with a claimed spirit of a pirate from 200 years ago, and she had a wedding with him. Had a what do you call them? A seance.
Ceremony.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, where she allowed this demon to speak through her so that she could have a wedding ceremony and could physically interact with this basically fallen angel spirit.
And that's becoming pretty popular, actually.
Yeah.
So-
The New Age movement. We're going to cover
You
that a
can
lot.
marry a tree now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and then they
The
have,
heck?
Identify as a
and they have
daffodil.
a couple
kids and
a dog. Yeah, so these are real.
Yeah.
You have something, Alice?
I was thinking a little bit about it. I guess I have a question.
Yeah.
If you wanna know that. You're talking about mixing different, a little bit, like with the animals,
Yeah.
and it keeps coming to my mind, a mule is a mix between a horse and a donkey.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like he said, can't God use that for his glory?
I'm sure he can.
Because we've got two mules here that are probably two of the best ones that we have.
But the only counter I'd have to that is we're going to get into genetic manipulation in today's world. The liger and the tigan that they made,
Yeah.
both of them are huge giants. They both have a lot of problems. They're both sterile. See, God put genetic limitations and boundaries on his creation so that when they cross boundaries and species, they can't procreate.
No, they don't either.
And now you got to ask
That's
yourself,
mules.
why can't that mule, which I have a donkey and I love mules too, I'm not prejudiced against a mule, right? But here's the question, why can't it procreate? I don't know. Same thing with the liger and the tigan. They crossbred those 10 years ago, none of them can procreate. So God's found a way to say, hey, you might be able to mix with my DNA, but I'm not going to let that abominable or whatever that is keep producing it. But yeah, those mules, there's a lot of people that say that mules with a gentle spirit, right? And there's a lot of people that say, you know,
Oh, we have one in here yesterday.
exactly.
Yeah.
She is-
So I don't know what to do with that. I'm not, you know what I mean? You love the mule, and at the end of the day, God he made us all. He made Satan, he made Lucifer, he made
We're
everything,
actually
right?
looking for
So,
more because they have been amazing.
yeah.
And they have more longevity than the horses.
Yep.
I got a question.
Yeah.
This helps me go forward. So then we know that the enemy has, whatever God has created, he's deceived. Is all of this out there because I have grandchildren and kids that grew up with this.
Of course, we all do.
It's all the deception to then not question when it comes out even
Yes.
Yeah.
blatantly what we're
Right,
seeing now.
yeah.
And we're probably
Right,
seeing that in
precondition.
the LGBT, and they now have 18 different genders.
Oh,
Yeah.
That they say, this is acceptable.
Yeah.
So we just.
First there was an assault on
Program.
sexuality, right? I
Right.
don't know if I'm gay, straight, or bi. Then it morphed into, now it's an assault on gender. I don't know if I'm a man, woman, or
Identity.
any gender.
Our
So see,
identity,
see how
very
it's-
core of who God made us.
yeah, it's
So it's
marring,
really-
it's marring God's image. And it's going to the genetic realm because we're gonna hit the whole transhumanism, AI,
Yeah.
robotics, that whole
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
And you're gonna see all this coming back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's complicated.
Crazy.
So one thing I got to do here is so my daughter loves this show,
Yes.
Maui, right? And it's a pretty good show. So remember Genesis 6. Now this is the NIV version, right? Remember the word hero did not exist when King James was written. You
Right.
know, So the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also after when the sons of God came to the daughters of humans and had children with them, they were the heroes of old, men of renown, right? Now we know that would be appropriate because the etymology of the word hero means a demigod. So now Maui. Let's talk about Maui. This is a cartoon that came out last year. What is he? He's a giant, right? It's pretty big. Let's see if we can get this to play. If I'm on the internet.
Lord help him.
Fast forward. And I might not be able to.
There you go.
There you go.
Right.
I don't know. From current slide.
Is there a hyperlink?
Well, the question
Yeah,
is
you-
how do you hit play, right?
It had the little
There you
triangle
go,
in the
yeah,
middle.
go down
There
to
you
the little
Yeah, in the middle of it.
triangle.
Hit the,
I see my cursor on here, but I don't see it on there.
Huh.
Well, hit it on the one that you see.
Yeah.
I don't see one.
hit
In the
enter.
middle?
His screen is blank.
Yeah, it's funny.
Oh,
Hmm.
Oh,
interesting.
man. Where is the play button? I have a play here, but
Maybe we
It's
could
not
just
Hit it.
give a play button.
yeah. Well, you know what it might be? I may not be on the internet. But we're not going to waste a lot of time on this
Yeah.
because we can't. But it's really interesting. He quotes Genesis 6.
Really?
Yes.
No way.
Yes, he does. That's why I would love for him to
Wow.
play.
Wow.
Well, that's Disney, and Disney,
Yeah,
you guys know about
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
Disney.
there's evil.
Evil.
Yeah, that
Disney.
goes under Freemasonry and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff from Disney.
Oh, astral projection, and it's all.
All right, what's happening here?
Sorry.
You need to go over it.
Out. Very loud.
Pretend, yeah.
That's all I can say.
Here we go.
Oh, there you go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Now we got it.
Here you go, Rachel. Listen real quick.
You gotta go.
Maui, shapeshifter, demigod of the wind and sea. I am
Hero of men.
What?
It's actually Maui, shapeshifter, demigod of the wind and sea, hero of men. I interrupted from the top. Hero of men. Go.
All right, demigod, shapeshifter, hero of men, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he literally, he's
Spells
a,
it out,
and it tells you throughout the show that the gods came down, they took the women, they made Maui. Now the movie goes on, Maui goes on to say, we created the sun, the demigods created everything, we taught man fire, we taught man how to use plants, we taught man everything, you owe us all everything, and then it goes on and it sings a song. You're welcome. It's a famous song. You don't have to pray to anybody but us. You're welcome.
Oh,
And it's a
evil.
complete manifestation of Genesis 6 in a cartoon in 2017.
To
It's got
brainwash the kids.
it's got the as above, so below. So you have to look at this closely. It's you know, it's the yin and the yang, the black and the black.
Oh, yeah.
And it's this symbol right here. You know, and we're gonna get into that later. But I couldn't believe my mind when I heard him say, "I'm a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Demigod. I'm a
Oh,
hero
yeah.
of men."
They're
the whole
not
story.
covering anything
And I thought,
up
wow.
anymore.
And I'll be honest,
Hidden in
it's a
plain
fun
sight.
show to watch,
Exactly.
right? And I pray over the show and we watch it and I just teach my daughter about it.
Yep.
You can't, this is so pervasive now that you can't eliminate it. And we're getting ready
No,
to
so
step
you have
into
to
it soon.
speak
So,
truth into it.
Well, we did say we're going on the offensive.
Amen.
So right now we're doing the shift this weekend.
all
We're
right,
on offensive.
slideshow, concurrent slide. Let's keep rocking through this. So, what do they all have in common? Superhuman strength and power, human-like qualities, altered DNA, famous and renowned. They're a new age version of the ancient Nephilim that have been repackaged in a more sophisticated way. They seem to be Satan's attempt to keep this idea imprinted in the human consciousness. Why?
For the great deception.
So, did these mythological giants survive after the flood? So let's review. There were giants in the earth in those days. What days?
Days
Before
of
the
Noah.
flood, right? And also after that, when the sons of God came in and did what they did. Let's fast forward to number 13, way after the flood, right? This is when Caleb and Joshua are being told to go into the promised land to spy it out, to see what's going on. And this was it. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which came of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Okay, he's referencing giants.
And
By the way,
Anunnaki.
the Anunnaki are, you know, these alien forces that are going to come down in the end times and save us when all hell breaks loose. And we're going to talk about them later. I believe that the word Anunnaki really derives from the Anak and his sons, right? The
Yeah.
Anakims. Here's another verse. Deuteronomy, whither shall we go up? Our brethren were discouraged, saying, the people is greater and taller than we. The cities are great and walled up to heaven, and moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakims, and that word Anakim means the giants. So the Old Testament has just got tons of giant stuff in it. How about Deuteronomy 3? For only King Og of Bashan remained of the remnant of the giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bed of iron, 9 cubits of the length, 4 cubits and of the height. So, one, he couldn't have a bed made out of wood because he'd break it, he's that big. He's a giant. Turns out that that bed is 13.5 feet long by 6 feet wide for this giant. This is the Old Testament, King James Bible, right?
Yep.
1 Samuel 17, they went out against a champion, the only other time in the scripture the word champion is used, of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath, whose height was 6 cubits in a span. He was 9 foot 9 inches down, and he was a really watered down version of the Nephilim.
And he had brothers.
Yeah, and he had brothers. And there was yet a battle in Gath where there was a man of great stature that had on his hand 6 fingers and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he was born to the giants, the 6-footed man. And so we've got all these stories in the Old Testament of giants. Now this is interesting. Arnold Schwarzenegger's
Can I butt in?
Yeah, please do.
Six fingers, 6 toes. You know the Indians go how?
Yeah,
So they can count the number of fingers
so they know you're
on
human.
your hand. And I had somebody that was half Native American tell me that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
Quarter Native American.
Yes, am I right?
Yes.
so the Indians, the old lore of oral Indian tradition was that there was a red-headed giant clan of men who came down way back in the day in North American continent, did everything that we've discussed here, and that they started hybridizing, and that the only way people could recognize them is they were 6-fingered, 6-toed giants, and so it became a thing where one of the ways you identified yourself genetically was you put up your hand, and if you had more than 5 fingers, you were not legit, right? You go, well, that sounds pretty preposterous, but we're reading in our own inspired Word of God that Goliath's brother from Gath is a 6-fingered, 6-toed giant. So Arnold Schwarzenegger's a pretty big man, bodybuilder, Miss Olympia 7 times, right? 6'3", 250 pounds. Well, Yao Ming, a professional basketball player, is 7'6". He makes him look like a dwarf, right? Compared to him. Goliath was over 2 feet taller than Yao Ming.
Right.
Look at this. Goliath was 2 feet taller than Yao Ming. Put Goliath up against Arnold Schwarzenegger, he'd be double his size. Goliath was a watered down version of a Nephilim. He was a very diluted version of them. So we don't know how big they were, but they're big enough to stack 200 million ton stones and put pyramids together.
Short compared to what the Lord has shown me.
And we know that David was able to beat him because David had been
Goliath
anointed.
was kind of a small giant.
Goliath was
a giant, but a small one.
He was a remnant of the real giants, which were
Yeah.
monstrous, huge.
And he went on the offensive, you uncircumcised.
That's right.
So this is in Ireland. They unearthed this guy on the left, who that train cart's 10 feet tall. So they estimate this to be a 12-foot tall giant. On the right, you see a piece of money down here. It would almost be the size of our dollar bill. You know, when you look at Da Vinci proved that when you look at the length of this bone compared to this bone, it's the same ratio as this bone compared to this bone. It's true of all the bones in the body. There's a perfect ratio of pi, 1.5 to 1, as you go through all of them. This has the same ratio. It's got a fingernail on it, it's got bones, and it's a 16 centimeter finger, which is about a 9-inch finger, right? It's double our length of our fingers.
Wow.
So that's pretty interesting. So we start with 3 questions. Who are the sons of God? We know who they are. They're the fallen angels. Who are the giant offspring? We know they're the Nephilim, right? But where do these sons of God come from? They came from the heavens. There's 2 words in the Bible for heaven. In the Old Testament, in the Hebrew, it's shamayim. The shamayim is the visible universe, the sky and the atmosphere, right? And then the urano is what we use in the Greek, the starry heaven or the universe. So how many heavens are there? So there's a lot of different dimensions, but there's 3 main heavens, right? The first heaven is the firmament, what we see right here. Every day we look up at the first heaven, the sky. Right? The second heaven is outer space. So right here we are, right? Here's the Milky Way galaxy, here's Earth. If you back out a little bit, one of these is the Milky Way galaxy with Earth. And if you keep backing out, this is the whole entire universe, right? All of this is the second heaven. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alright, now Anthony Patch came up with the universe model, which is a pretty brilliant model based on the tetrahedron, which is the most well-constructed, organized geometric symbol in the world, and 600 tetrahedrons stacked on top of each other create this. They call this the universe model. Inside of this right here is the space-time continuum. Everything in our universe, if you put it in a box, but it's not in a box, we think it's in a tetrahedron, this is where it's at. Hey, Coralie. Good to see you. So I want you to picture that, you know, what we just went through, that here we are, every day we get to look at our first heaven, right? But now if you were to back out, we're in a galaxy, a spiral galaxy called Earth, and it's in the Milky Way, and the Milky Way is now one of these little galaxies, and you keep backing out, and you go, it's infinite beyond. Well, no, it's not infinite beyond. We know that it's not infinite. So what is it? It's in something like this. God created something that He's outside of. Inside of this construct is everything in the universe, and inside of this construct is space and time. And outside of this construct is the spirit realm with multiple dimensions. And there are doorways between that realm and our realm, and that's what we're going to go into in the second half. So, so halftime, you know, just to revolve. Fallen angels descended from a higher dimension or realm into our universe, and then descended to Earth from space as gods or extraterrestrials. That's what we're going to discuss next. Once these spiritual beings come into our universe where the laws of physics, matter, and time operate, they can materialize and become corporal just like in the scriptures. So in Genesis 18, you got 3 angels coming in to hang out with Abraham before they destroy Sodom. They sit down. It says that 3 men who were angels of the Lord. They come, they sit down, they drink, they eat. He goes and slaughters the fatted calf. They have a meal, and then they hang out, right? Same with the angels who came into Sodom. The people in Sodom thought they were men. When they come into our existence, just like Maui the shapeshifter, they can materialize into different things. They also can take on a corporal embodiment, right? Materialization. That's where we're going to go with the extraterrestrial phenomenon, because there are people who've been able to materialize in our 4-dimensional space-time alien beings, which is really weird, right? And we're going to make the spiritual connection on all that. So they destroyed the human animal genome and brought about the flood. And we know that's the origin of the demons. They managed to resurface after the flood. We read all about them throughout the Old Testament. The nation of Israel was charged with wiping them out. They're prophesied to resurface in the end of days by the Lord Himself, and we're going to cover that. And they're going to come back from space again today. Only this time they're not going to be called gods and angels, but they're going to be called extraterrestrials.
Our star brothers. Is this the half time?
Yeah.
Why don't we stop now and have lunch, and then we'll pick up in the evening? So this will have a chance to kind of settle in. We can pray about it.
So I think the final note I would leave here on is, this is where they come from, right? We hear heaven and we think where the Lord God resides. But they're coming from other dimensions, and they're coming from the star universe. Remember, Nephilim means Orion's constellation. They're coming from the stars. They were called the star people when they came back in the old days. Now today we have a new phenomenon of something else coming from the stars. They're called extraterrestrials. And what we're going to find out through all the research from a bunch of PhDs and MDs and everything else is that they're saying that these entities are hybridizing with human beings, making hybrids. And you go, well, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard. You're telling me aliens from space are mixing with humans? But what you're going to find is it's exactly identical to what happened before the flood. And we're going to connect all the spiritual dots, connect it to the New Age movement and everything like that. That'll be the second half.
I will interject here, just a kind of a tickler.